If you reckon politics has become divorced from mainstream concerns, the debate has become toxic and its operation has become dysfunctional, then batten down the hatches. I reckon things could get much worse in the year ahead. Why? Well, because the destabilising influence of the minor parties and independents is likely to increase. These fringe political elements are on the rise, partly because the major parties have lost their way, but at the same time, of course, they make it almost impossible for the major parties to operate effectively and reclaim their standing. So it's a bit of a chicken and egg situation. With the parliament so finely balanced at the moment, and looking at all the polling, there is every chance we could end up with a hung parliament after the election in May. And then we could have independents and Greens MPs deciding who will form minority government in this country. Now, remember last time that happened? Back in 2010, former Conservatives turned independents, Tony Windsor and Rob Oakeshott, installed a Labor government.
Thank you to everyone for giving us the grace of, what are we up to, 17 days of trying to work out a wicked dilemma for Australia.
Yeah, wicked dilemma, all right. That's exactly what they gave us. Gillard's government was hopeless, perhaps the worst of a bad bunch over the past 15 years of governance. The Gillard government did a deal with the independents to get power, and then they did a deal with the Greens to try and keep it. And because of that, they broke a key promise not to introduce a carbon tax. They also lost control of our borders and all the rest of it. Fast forward 12 years, and we now have a bunch of so-called Voices candidates targeting Liberal-held seats, not Labor seats, they're targeting Liberal-held seats, and they're keen, of course, to grab the balance of power. They seem more like a party than a bunch of independents because they all run the same slogans about climate change and integrity.
I just want to talk to you briefly about trust, and I want to ask you a few questions. First one is, do you trust our government? Do you trust our leaders? Do you trust our system?
Yeah, trust. It's very important, isn't it? Well, if you were going to vote for Zoe Daniel or millionaire climate activist Allegra Spender in Wentworth or Monique Ryan taking on Josh Frydenberg in Kooyong, surely you'd want to know who they would support to form government if no party wins in a majority at the election. Surely you're entitled to know that. Surely you demand to know it before you cast your vote for them. But they won't say. Spender dodged the issue in a response to us, saying she'll just do what's best for Wentworth. And Daniel said if she was fortunate enough to win and there was to be a minority government formed, she would expect the men vying to be Prime Minister would want to consult her. Don't worry, Zoe. I reckon Albo would give you a direct call if he hasn't already. I just reckon that wherever the independents are running, if they expect to win the trust, that important word, if they expect to win the trust of voters, they need to declare who they would support for government. In reality, of course, it's pretty clear they'd support a Labor Greens government. They just don't want to say so before the election. And why? Why wouldn't they want to make that clear? Maybe they worry it would scare away some voters. So much for trust and transparency in politics.